Built in the 517 is a podcast about the people who make our local business community what it is. In each episode, host Katrina Hofstetter sits down with business owners from across mid-Michigan to hear their stories, their challenges, and what it really takes to build something from the ground up. The show exists to spotlight local leaders, support small businesses, and strengthen the connections that keep our communities thriving. Here's your host, Katrina Hofstetter.
Welcome. I'm your host, Katrina Hofstetter, and this is Built in the 517, the podcast that brings stories that inspire you, encourage you, and introduce you to one of your next favorite local businesses. My guest today is Lillian Werbin, co-owner and CEO of Elderly Instruments. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
So I know your father started the business back in 1972, and that's obviously very inspiring that we've got this small business that's pretty big now, and it's been thriving for 50 plus years. Do you know what really inspired him to start the business back in the 70s?
Yeah. At the time, he and his partner were finishing up school at U of M, and they had been not collecting, but acquiring old instruments and rehoming them.
Okay.
And they got pretty good at it. And they thought, maybe we should do this for real. So my dad graduated with a master's in biochemistry.
So
And then
nothing music related.
nothing. And then immediately opened the store with his partner at the time. And so they moved to East Lansing. They had, a handful of instruments. And they opened for the love of the music, for the love of the instruments. And it grew from there in a really kind of organic way.
Where it started.
Yeah, that's where we started.
And I assume he's not used the chemistry major at all.
No. Although I must admit he's extremely intelligent and
Okay.
uses the problem solving, he can do A, B, C, D and move on. He's
Yeah.
he's one of a kind in that aspect.
So when they first started with their little collection of instruments, were they in the current location or they were somewhere else and evolved into that?
Yeah, so we were in East Lansing in 1972,
Okay.
in the basement of the 541 building, which is still there.
Okay.
And it was an 8 by 10 room. I think they had to do all their own construction and stuff. They didn't have a calculator, this was grassroots trying to get it started.
Yeah.
And throughout the years, they grew. The 8 by 10, they knocked some walls out in the basement. They grew to a 20 by 20.
Wow.
Slowly but surely, they took up the whole basement,
Mm-hmm.
and we needed more space. And so, in 1983, early 80s, we moved to our current location, which is in Old Town Lansing,
Mm-hmm.
and we are, at the corner of Old Town, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So we're on Maple in North Washington. And originally we were just in the Odd Fellows Hall. So it's a former International Odd Fellows Hall.
Okay.
That's our main building. And then we needed more space. So we grew some more, and we bought the buildings next door and combined those to the Odd Fellows Hall. And so that 8 by 10 room in 1972 is now 36,000 square feet in Lansing, So,
Oh my gosh.
So
And
we,
that's rapid growth too. I mean, like roughly a decade, and it's amazing.
it is. And, they did all of the standard get your business up and running stuff, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Put flyers on telephone poles, and they put ads in the newspapers, and they advertised at concerts, and then they made a catalog. So
Okay.
in 75, we started shipping. I believe our catalog was in 75, our first one. And then that allowed us to reach
Mm-hmm.
way out. Lansing wasn't Lansing and Michigan were no longer the focus. It was we
Yeah.
can service people in California.
Mm-hmm.
We can help people in Japan. And so from there, it grew even more. And then we had a website in the early 90s. Like they automated in some aspects our inventory in the late 80s, which is pretty ahead of their time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he spent a lot of time early on being ahead of his time. I think it's a lot of things. I think luck takes a lot of hard work.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think lucky people aren't just inherently lucky. I think they work really hard to have good luck
Mm-hmm.
and they work really hard to follow through and to do it now. And, you know, my dad did that, Sharon did that, his partner, and our staff did that, you know. Um, and so those first 10, 20 years really formed not only like how we go about doing business, but it really solidified for our customer base that we can be trusted over time.
Yeah, and to have to evolve so much, not just as a business owner, but even as you were talking about the marketing things that you used to do, I'm thinking we used to have yellow pages. People used to get phone books, and that's where we would get that information. And
Mhm.
to know that that's kind of how they started, and then they were able to just seamlessly evolve every decade as those things change, and the internet comes about, and then they're getting a website. And I mean, they've gone through all of it. I mean, any form of advertising or marketing, they've probably done it. And that's just, you don't see that a lot. That's really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, in the retail world, you got to try it.
Hmm.
Whatever it is, you got to try it. And
Right.
it might not work for your business,
Yeah.
but you need to know that.
Yeah.
At least in my mind, it helps to know that.
Yeah.
So those are the early years,
Yeah.
and I wasn't around for that, but I love the stories. So
Yep. Well, and to know the history of it, I think is really important for you and to be a family business and to be able to share even before you were part of it what was built. That's
yeah,
something really special.
yeah.
You mentioned Japan, and I don't think I realized the reach of elderly instruments until I started digging in and finding information online. I noticed there are a lot of articles, a lot of websites that describe the company as being world renowned.
Mhm.
And so you mentioned that after California, you're like, oh, we could reach Japan. So what was that like to become this international company? That's amazing.
You know, that might be part of the early days that I don't
Okay.
know, in the sense of I've always heard of it as this is just something that came and we kept doing.
Right.
Uh, what I do know is that the world has changed drastically.
Hmm.
And so there are significantly more hurdles and difficulties when buying overseas or
Yep.
shipping overseas or importing any of it. Um, like, for example, this is just like an interesting tidbit, but there are vintage musical instruments that we sell that have to be approved by
Hmm.
the US Fish and Wildlife because there are endangered species within the construction of the instrument.
Wow.
Mhm.
Huh.
So when we are sending an instrument elsewhere, it has to come with declaration pages and all of these forms and has to go to this office to get approved and then back to us and then out. And so, there's a lot of logistics to doing business elsewhere.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important for us to maintain the ability.
Yeah.
Because I mean, music really is a universal language.
Hmm.
And what we're doing is fostering that.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, our reach is worldwide. um, still. And, I think it's important for international customers to know that, but it's it can be a difficulty
Yeah.
marketing to non-US entities
Right.
versus the nation and then versus local.
Hmm.
And there's always a lot to think about when it comes to marketing a business, but
Yeah.
it's ultimately all it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about how the move internationally was really kind of before your time. When did you join the family business?
2014
Okay.
officially.
Okay. Was there a specific catalyst? Like what what spurred you to join, or was it just kind of always a given?
No, it was never a given. Let
Okay.
me very clear, never a given. So I graduated from Western Michigan and I finished school studying abroad. And I was with this group of super smart communications majors. And we were all like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And the more we talked about it, the more I was getting anxious. I didn't want to work for somebody I didn't believe in. I wasn't chasing dollars. I just wanted to have a good job that I believed in that I could keep doing for a long time. And nothing came to mind. So I called my dad and I said, "Hey, I'm having a bit of a panic. Can I work for you when I come home?" And he was like, "Oh, Lily, please don't be an extra body, like this is not a good time." um, so I started working part-time, commuting from Kalamazoo
Wow.
in the warehouse. I picked orders and I shipped them. That was my job for a year. And boy, I wasn't expecting to it was a homecoming, like I knew everybody sort of. Like I knew them enough and they knew me enough, but we didn't really know each other.
Yeah.
And I liked them all. And then I liked our customers. One of the first packages I ever picked was an order to Kuwait. And I thought, whoa, that's great. Like, whoa. I, having grown up around this business, have no idea. Like, I had heard it, but I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
So like seeing, like picking orders, I'm picking strings, I'm picking instruments, I'm picking polishing cloths, like all of these things, and they're going all over the place. And then we're getting messages back like, "Oh, thank you so much. You packed my strings just right. Oh, thank you so much. I can't wait to play this guitar. It's going to make my life so much better." Like the the positive anecdotes just kept coming. And then, my lease is up in Kalamazoo, and I'm like, I want to move home. I want to move home and I want to do this. So I did. I split my time in the warehouse, the sales department, and the phone room. After a while, it was very clear to me that I wanted to know more about how it all worked together. At what point is the appraiser brought in? At what point does it need to go to the way, when does repair touch it?
Yeah.
And so like I just wanted to figure all of that out. So I tried my hand in a bunch of departments, kind of got my bearings, and I went to my dad and I said, do you have a succession plan? Because I think I want to be it. And he said, well, I hadn't thought about that, but like if you're serious, I could be serious about that. And then we had this blending of ideas, and it was a totally different feel because he had somebody to bounce ideas off of, and I had something to pour my heart into. And so he felt more supported, and I felt motivated. And through that, we really were able to revamp the business and make it sustainable in the current retail era.
Yeah.
A lot of it was luck. A lot of it was hard work that
Yep.
looks a lot like luck. But in the 10 years, I guess it's been 12 years,
Yeah.
but 10 years since I've been truly full-time working on the business and not necessarily in it. And we've had systems overhauls, we've had staffing changes, we've had entire departments created. We have done a lot of hard work to remain standing. And like that's kudos to the team.
Yeah.
That's kudos to the people who've been here for 40 years. It's kudos to the people who've been here for 2 months. Because it really takes the whole squad to run this enterprise.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to be said for you were talking about, he's got someone to bounce ideas off of, you've got the motivation, you've got these generational differences that not only impact your relationship and kind of that dynamic in the store, and for the staff, but also just I think it also helps the business evolve and grow when, even though he's been through so many different things as he's grown the business, now you can step in and say, like, let's keep this going. And yeah, I think that's huge. And I think it's cool for the family business to have that succession plan. I love that you threw out succession plan because that's what I do. So
mean, more people should think about them because it's not just family. Like every business has to have one.
yep.
There will always be a moment where the current owner needs to step down or they die or, life happens. And your business is, at least for me, everything.
Yeah.
And there are people relying on us.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the staff, not just me and my dad, but like our customers are
Yep.
relying on us. And so having a plan to pass down information, not just from my dad to me, but from the established appraisers to our new ones.
Mm-hmm.
A purchaser who's retiring to a new hire. All of that information and care matters in every business, in every department, in every role. I will die on that hill.
So you didn't study music in any way in school. You did communications. Um, I'm assuming you kind of grew up around instruments though, right? I mean, dad ran the business. Did you play instruments growing up?
I tried. I can pick all of them up and do enough,
Okay.
but I was a vocalist. I was in
Okay.
professional choirs growing up, and I ran an a cappella group in college with one of my best friends. And so, like, I've always been happy to feel the music. I don't necessarily need to play it. I'm very fond of the banjo, and
Okay.
there are people who will tell you that I play that very well. I will not tell you that. But it's my instrument of choice.
Okay. I came across a couple videos or blogs, I don't remember which it was, that highlight the collection of banjos that you have in the store. Um, and I found it really inspiring that you, and I'm sure this applies to more than just the banjo, but you don't just sell the instruments and repair them and all of that. It sounds like you guys really strive where there's opportunity, where someone's interested in hearing about it, to pass along the history and the cultural relevance of the instruments and really go beyond that. And I'm just curious, are there any instruments that you guys have that you would say are either historically or culturally relevant to Lansing, or maybe even to Michigan, if that broadens it a little bit? But I was just curious about if there was anything to share from that historical or cultural perspective about your instruments.
In general, my understanding is that Michigan had quite the folk scene in the
Okay.
70s. And so that's probably the the strongest link to
Okay.
what we sell to the state itself. We were kind of at the heart of a lot of folk and music related events that took household names and blew them up.
Yeah.
And um, We've seen a lot of high profile people in our store, and we are allowing a different type of interaction for the state of Michigan. Like
Okay.
there are music stores all over.
Yeah.
I I think our attention to detail in the history does set us apart.
Mhm.
And I think our willingness to hear the customer sets us apart. And frankly, Michigan's music scene is super saturated. I mean, like, you can go to any city in this state and find live music,
Yeah.
and not just live music, but like good live
Yeah.
music. um, and so, I think that's kind of our link. What we sell really does harken and celebrate the folk revival or the folk scene of the 70s.
Okay.
Uh, there is like a roots revival happening in the current era, where there's a resurgence of old time music, bluegrass music, just kind of roots folk
Hmm.
genres. These days, people call it Americana. It's all
Right.
Americana. Um, it's not, but there are a lot of music stores that are very focused on electric,
Hmm.
rock and roll, blues, and jazz. Great.
Yeah.
Love that. You can get that from us too. However, there are very few stores that you'll find a dulcimer.
Yeah.
There are very few stores you'll find an auto harp. These are things that are quite literally dying arts,
Hmm.
as far as I can see. So, we do strive to keep the history alive. We do strive to make sure people understand the instrument that they have, um, and how to care for it, how to preserve it, how to keep it for a lifetime. I
Which I
like
think
when
is
we
rare.
have,
Yeah.
oh yeah, but we have customers come in and say, my dad bought this from you years ago and he just passed and now it's mine,
Oh,
you know, and that's something that we take personally. They're trusting us with like their emotions.
yeah.
This is talk free therapy. I don't know. I'm sure I've strayed from your question.
No, no, you're good. We were talking about kind of the connection to history and culture here in Lansing or in Michigan. And you talked a little bit, you touched on this as you were sharing that little bit about some of the things that you guys do beyond just passing along that relevance of the instrument. And I'm just curious, are there other products or services that we haven't talked about yet that you want to share about that maybe people don't know Elderly Instruments provides?
Let me do my little, it's not little, it's a weird pitch, but we buy, sell, trade, consign, appraise, and repair musical instruments.
Okay.
So our repair shop is kind of twofer. So they not only handle all of our inventory, so a guitar comes in from Pennsylvania, they're going to look it over before it hits the floor, before it's photographed, to make sure it's actually in playable condition.
Mhm.
Somebody buys it, it's going to go back to the repair shop before it leaves the building to make sure that it didn't get dings or it needs new strings or whatever. So like the instruments are getting quality checked
Mhm.
twice at the very least. And then the repair shop also handles all of our customer repairs.
Oh, okay.
So we have people drive from out of state to bring their instruments to us because they trust us to do the repair correctly
Yeah.
and do it right the first time.
Mhm.
Uh, and our shop has its own renowned reputation. And we've had some of the nation's greatest luthiers work in our shop. The repair shop is a big one because you don't have to buy your instrument from us to have it repaired with us. But also, people don't always understand how to care for their instruments. And
Yeah.
that's something that, we are willing and able to help people with. So the repair shop for sure, the appraisers for sure. If you have instruments and you just want an appraisal for insurance purposes, we do that.
Yeah.
We kind of are the one-stop shop for anybody who's playing a fretted instrument. We have
Okay.
what you need. And if we don't, I bet we can get it. And I bet we can get it pretty quickly.
Okay. You mentioned early on that you guys are in the Old Town community. You said kind of on the edge or the corner. And what I hear about elderly instruments and just the talk in the community is that you guys are kind of leaders in being entrepreneurs, being business owners, being leaders in the Old Town community. And I remember a couple of years ago, so we have some mutual friends, and there were some posts on Facebook about how you guys were named as America's top small business in 2023.
Mhm.
What was that like?
Surreal. It's still surreal, if I'm being completely honest. It was like an application competition kind of thing.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we wrote out, it was our first time doing that kind of thing, really. And we were just, why not? Well, we think we're good, and we know that other people think we're good, so why not?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I got closer to the time and we got invited to DC, and I'm thinking like, wow, that's pretty good. And we made the top 10. I'm like, wow, that's good job. That's all we need. We're in the running. We've done it. And then Dad and I were sitting in the audience, and they called our name. I remember turning to him and I said, "Will you come with me on stage?" And he goes, "Oh, sure." Like this isn't.
No big
I
deal
think
for
we were
him.
both kind of like,
Yeah.
whoa. And along with that title, which really, I don't think there are words to explain how meaningful that is. But we were awarded $25,000, and we elected to pass it back to the community that supports us.
Yeah.
Every dollar went to a festival or a camp or a school, and it just felt really good that the reason we were America's top small business was community,
Yep.
ultimately speaking. And we were able to give back because of it. And that felt really good.
Yeah. I mean, that's just amazing. One of the articles that I read that kind of reflected on you guys getting that award was just this recognition for the culture of the company, which, plays its own part in the community side of it. But just the fact that you guys invest in your employees and you have so many employees, it's amazing how many people you have on staff. How would you articulate what is at the core of that company culture that you guys are recognized for? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, probably authenticity.
Okay.
Everybody here is genuinely and unapologetically themselves every day. For what it's worth, I do ask that of them, but you got to come feel it, because what we have is 40 employees who live and breathe this.
Yeah.
They love the instruments just as much as the customers do. And when a customer comes in, it's an old friend from a band they used to play in. Or, oh, I played music with that guy's kids when I was growing up. Or I relocated to be here.
Wow.
This building is full of heart and grit, like full of well-meaning,
Yeah.
loving, kind people. And I think once people feel that, they would like to feel it again.
Yeah.
I think it's rare.
I mean, I think being able to have an experience like that where you're working, it doesn't necessarily feel like a job, even though it is. And you get all the benefits that come along with that. But it is definitely rare to be able to go to work every day and just love it. And it sounds like that's what you got in 40 people. That is amazing. Now, I've got obviously a much smaller staff, and other people that are watching probably have smaller staffs. But what do you think is the most impactful way that business owners can invest in their employees? to maybe not have the same type of culture that you guys have, but be on that same trajectory?
I think the one-on-ones that I do with everyone are probably the most influential.
Okay.
Um, I do one-on-ones with everyone right before our fiscal year ends.
Okay.
And then the leadership team and I create our annual plan, our strategic plan based off of the feedback from staff,
I
which
love
means
that.
there's no, I hear a lot of business owners like, I got to get buy-in. Like, you don't need buy-in if the ideas came from the people doing the work,
Yeah.
And who better to give you ideas than the people executing the plan?
Yep.
But also, it's not just about work. There have been years where I start the conversation with like, are you all right? You
Mm-hmm.
good? How's life? I think business owners, CEOs, C-suite execs, it's very easy to remove yourself from the people part of the business.
Yeah.
You're caught up in spreadsheets and reporting and meetings, and you think, oh, I got to get out of here. But, check in with a couple people every day.
Yeah.
You've made it. If I have talked to everybody in the building at least once a week, I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and the fact that when you think about how many hours a day we spend at our jobs compared to being home or with our families or doing something fun,
Mhm.
I mean, checking in and just on the personal side, like how you doing, that means a lot when you are spending so much time with these people.
It does. It does. And again, like business owners forget what it's like to be in the
Mm-hmm.
business. Because if they have to be in the business, they're stressed out. Because
Yeah.
that wasn't the point. Like that wasn't the plan. So, I get it. I get it. You're caught up.
Yep.
Check in. Check in anyway. It'll make you feel better.
Yep.
Uh,
So other than kind of staying connected with your staff and just having this really cohesive group of people, how do you go beyond that and stay connected to the business community while you're still trying to run a business?
I'm a little crazy about it.
Okay.
When the pandemic hit, I joined a boatload of boards
Okay.
to try to support community on the ground level, you know?
Yeah.
Um, one of the boards I'm on specifically gives grants and scholarships to bluegrass musicians. Like that is the whole role. Another one is promoting LGBT opportunities for those same musicians. There's the African American Roots Music Festival of Fort Worth, and so like what I've done to support the community that supports me
Mm-hmm.
and us is to literally go right back to it.
Okay.
So like there are festivals that I'll go MC or I'll go work for a festival or a camp. And sometimes that's in return for a sponsorship. Sometimes it's not.
Yep.
Sometimes it's just they need somebody who can do the work,
Yeah.
who doesn't have a 9 to 5 and can be helpful there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
My dad and I have two separate partners, but we co-own a couple camps.
Okay.
So Midwest Banjo Camp and Midwest Ukulele Camp. Midwest Banjo Camp, it's not just banjos. It's banjos, guitar, mandolin, fiddle, bass, and it's a weekend, and we get like 150 campers.
Wow.
And we have faculty from all over the world who are truly the top players of the day. And then ukulele and harmonica camp is exactly the same. A weekend at a college, and you stay in the dorms, you get dorm food, you hang out, and these are adult camps. The average age of Banjo camp, I believe last year was 66.
When you said harmonica camp, I felt really nostalgic because my grandfather has played the harmonica my whole life. Like he'll play it at church. He will just bring it out and play it when we get together, like for family things. And it is something that I don't know.
Brings you joy.
When he starts playing it, you have to just kind of sit and feel it. Um, I actually it was a horrible idea, but I bought my two youngest boys harmonicas for Christmas
I love that.
because I was like, maybe they'll decide that they like it, and it's great.
Mhm.
Grandpa plays it, and who knows? But right now, it's just a lot of like screeching and trying to figure things out, and maybe we'll get there, and maybe we won't.
Or
But
maybe you're all gonna come to ukulele and harmonica camp.
maybe. I didn't even know it existed until now. So, okay.
For what it's worth, marketing is elderly shtick. Everywhere else we're working.
So I guess
So
the last thing I was going to ask you about, and you kind of touched on it a little bit already. You talked about these camps. Are there other events that you guys either host or promote or that you're involved in? Maybe something that's coming up this spring that you want to share about?
actually, yeah. Elderly, we used to have concerts all the time. We used to have in-house lessons, and the pandemic really put a damper on that.
Yeah.
And we have been trying to get it back rolling. You know, when people don't think of somewhere for entertainment, they don't think of that place.
Yeah.
So we have a few shows coming up in our showroom. What we
Okay.
do is we just move the instruments out of the way and we put the performer up front, and it's an intimate kind of. It's also a surreal experience because it's kind of magical. But and then let me think. Midwest Banjo Camp is in June, and it is
Okay.
in North Manchester, Indiana,
Okay.
at the university there, at North Manchester University. And Midwest Ukulele Camp is in July in Toledo, at the
Okay.
University of Toledo. And there are other events that I could pitch, but they're not necessarily mine. But I mean, if anybody ever wants, I'm sure people are going to see this and be like, well, what if I have a question? Like, email me.
Yeah.
Email like I saw a podcast. I have a question for Lily. It'll get to me. It might take a couple weeks, but it will get to me, and I will
Okay.
respond. Because I've had people reach out like, hey, do you know of any banjo centric events I could go to? I also co-run the Banjo Gathering, which is a scholars event specifically about the banjo, the evolution and construction of the banjo, and then like the historical, cultural
Yeah.
evolution of the banjo. It's a very cool event. It used to be the collectors gathering, which is a whole other section of this industry that people don't think about. But there are people who spend their entire life's work on banjos. It's fascinating, and you should see them. They're gorgeous. Oh, they're beautiful. But again, I'm a banjo nut, so sorry. I'm getting us
No,
off track. You're trying to
no,
wrap it up.
you're good. I think there was also something that I saw in a blog about how you've got some permanence to that love of banjos. Something on your knee, maybe?
Indeed, there is a banjo on my knee.
Love it.
Oh, Susanna.
Yeah. Uh,
People will be like, "Oh, are you gonna play?" Like, no, but I got my banjo on my knee.
mhm. This has been a lot of fun just chatting with you, not just learning about the business side of it and everything that Elderly Instruments has gone through and how it's evolved because I clearly did not know enough about it even in my research. But just getting to see the personal side of it is huge. Chatting with you, hearing how you've grown with the business and how your love of the history and culture has really played into what the business is today. I just love that. So
Thank you.
thank you so much for taking time. I know that it's hard to step away from business stuff and do this. So I really appreciate you taking time to join me today and chat.
No, this
And
was fun. Yeah, this was great. Thank you.
Yeah. If you are watching and you want to be a guest or you want to nominate another business owner, you can email Beth at cornerstonelegalpllc.com. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Built in the 517. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel today and support local businesses in the 517 and hear more inspiring stories.